Hi, welcome back to the Big Damn channel, and the first of these in a while because over the last year, new releases haven't been coming out of the cinema. Whenever we have managed to see a new film, either on a streaming service or what have you, Matt and I have talked about it on the podcast. But we're trying to streamline the podcast a little bit at the moment, so we won't be doing like full reviews in the show unless it's something we want to make the subject of an episode. As such, hi, I'm Chris, and I'm here to talk a little bit about Army of the Dead, the brand new Zack Snyder movie released on Netflix. The beginning of a proposed, or at least the hope beginning in their case, of a new cinematic universe featuring anime prequels and other film prequels. Content warning, sort of, and it's not about the horror or the gore. If you are a fan of the work of Zack Snyder and you can't hear any criticism of it whatsoever without being enraged, go now. Just go now. If you can listen to a man objectively and subjectively relay his opinions on a piece of work by Zack Snyder, both good and bad, without going into a hissy fit, stick around. Army of the Dead is a 2001. Well, Wikipedia categorizes it as a zombie heist film, which of course like is a brand new genre, and the main reason I wanted to watch this film in the first place. But it's it's an action horror. It's neither one nor the other, and it's not a particularly solid hybrid of either genre, of the two genres together rather. But it's an action first, a horror second, um, set a few years after the zombie outbreak begins, but is contained within the city of Las Vegas in Nevada. Nevada in it, Las Vegas. Terrible geography. Yes, the state of Nevada. The zombie outbreak is contained within Las Vegas. The entire city, you know, gambling haven, known the world over, is cordoned off by a wall of containers, shipping containers, and other things around the outside, keeping the zombies within. Um, it's several years after that has gone down, and the government has finally decided to take an action towards obliterating the zombies within its walls. There are people living within what's known as the quarantine zone around the outside, where like maybe they've been exposed to infection, maybe not. They're sort of driven out of their homes. They'd lived in the Vegas area, and now like they're living in poverty. There are people really struggling. They're heavily under sort of not even military occupation, but just like a security occupation who mistreat them and treat them like crap. Um, the government has finally decided, poetically on the 4th of July, to release a nuke into Las Vegas. Is that it? No. The main thrust of the film, and the reason why I was sort of excited by the premise, is that the plot revolves around the fact that a businessman and billionaire called Bly Tanaka approaches Dave Bautista's Scott Ward with an offer. You used to be a part of the military team that got people out of Vegas when it all kicked off, and you've ended up as just like a burger cook at this small restaurant. You're not living your full potential. You'd not really been rewarded for the work you did. Like your life folded in on itself. He also had personal tragedies involving the infection and the loss of his wife, and the distancing of himself and his daughter over the death of his wife and her mother. Here's what I'm offering you, says Tanaka. There is a vault with, I think, let me double check the amount, but I think it's, is it 200 million? Yeah, 200 million in cash in a vault under Tanaka's casino in Las Vegas. He's been compensated. He's got that money back through insurance. But the physical cash, which is now untraceable and untaxable, and as Batista says, unspendable, is in the vault under the casino in Vegas. So I'm sending in a team before the nuke drops, and you're going to make that team. You're going to put that team together from all your old colleagues and new experts, including helicopter pilot, played by Tig Notaro, a oh god, where's the descriptives? I can't find it. There's a YouTuber, basically. I can't even find him listed on the cast. That's annoying. There's like a YouTuber who like shoots zombies for clicks, and his mate. There's a safe cracker called Ludwig, who's like expert at the sort of safe that'll be down there, and like doesn't know if he can crack it, but he's the best chance they've got. There's Vanderho, a soldier who's obviously very good at what he does. Maria Cruz, Scott's friend, a mechanic. Like essentially, he recruits all his friends, and he's like, "Look, it's a payday. We'll divvy it up a certain amount each. Let's go in. It's worth a shot. Why not? It's worth a shot to do something for us for a change." Which is where the Zack Snyder mentality creeps in here. So Zack Snyder is the director of this movie, producer, wrote the screenplay and came up with the story. And I've said on our podcast many times that Zack Snyder is a really good visionary. He's great at picturing what a scene is going to look like and making it happen on screen. I just feel like he forgets about substance, and that we have to care about the characters on screen for these spectacular scenes to mean anything, because otherwise they are just set dressing. They are just popcorn fodder. And that is where the faults begin for Army of the Dead for me. Spoiler-free criticism, because everything I've told you is just the premise of the movie. Spoiler-free criticism. It's a 3 out of 5. It's so just a 3 out of 5. It's visually interesting. It's got some fun action beats. It you know, like stuff happens and then it ends. It's a fun distraction and absolutely fits right in with I'm not paying any extra for this because I already own Netflix. I wouldn't go see this. I wouldn't recommend you go see this at a cinema, for example, if it was out in the cinema, and I wouldn't recommend you buy this on Blu-ray or DVD or digital. Essentially, Army of the Dead is a wonderful chance to create something new in a very tired zombie genre. But it doesn't go far enough with the horror. It doesn't go far enough with the camp, and it doesn't have fun with its premise, which is a shame because Las Vegas heist, a crew of like different military experts of all shapes and sizes, and then to not make it interesting, really, it's a shame. Going forward, I'll talk a little bit more about the movie. Going forward, there's going to be some details, some slightly more spoilery details. So watch at your own discretion going forward. This film is sort of the equivalent of a jumper with a frayed thread at the bottom. Really lovely woolly jumper, but like, oh, that looks cool. That looks cozy. That looks like it'd do what it says on the tin. What's that thread at the bottom? Oh no, it's that kind of movie. So the idea of a heist to get a bunch of money out of a vault before a zombie town is nuked, great idea. But the characters are doing it because they feel like life owes them something, which is fair enough. You know, they served their country. They did what they could to help save people in the initial zombie outbreak. But like, show us that these characters feel they've been let down by the system, because otherwise it just comes across as it does in the movie, that these characters like Scott, you know, like Vanderho, like Maria Cruz, it just makes it look like they think they're owed something for wanting to do good. They join the military to do good and save lives, and the film is saying, and they should be rewarded for that. It's like, that's a very Snyder mentality. Superman's like that in his DCEU movies. You know, there's a very big kind of thing of like, I am owed a reward for being good. It's like, being good should be the default. Being good should be the bare minimum. If someone wished to give you something as a thank you, you could accept it. You know what I mean? It's very odd. Now, if these guys were just a group of career criminals, go for it. And I kind of think that was something that was missing. The fact that they were heroes who'd helped save the day and they were just kind of forgotten. I was like, what? You know, I mean, you were heroes, and now you're like, I want a little something. Of course, that's a selfish thought we can all have. Like, I'm owed something, surely. But do you see what I mean? Whereas if they were like criminals, you could have really colourful characters. As it stands, the characters created here are, through the performance of the actors alone, particularly with the performance of like Matthias. Oh my god, I'm so sorry if I get your name wrong. Schweighofer as Ludwig, the safecracker. The actors and Batista with his softness and the way he kind of like his approach is sort of quite calm. For an action hero, for a big hulking action hero in a film like this, he's not rash, he's not archetypal. He's a wonderfully subtle performer as Dave Bautista, as proved in Guardians of the Galaxy films, Blade Runner 2049. Hey, even Spectre. Uh, and Ana de la Reguera as Maria Cruz. It's down to these guys to bring something to the characters. They're the ones who actually flesh them out and make them remotely likable. It's not there in the script. It is not there in the script. The dialogue for this thing is very, very bland, very basic, very flat. As is the look of the movie. Zack Snyder is brilliant when he works with vistas, canvases. You know, I'm not a fan of his DCEU work overall, but there are some striking visuals in those movies. Same with, you know, the likes of 300. Same with the likes of Watchmen. Like he can paint a picture. He can really paint a picture visually. This really squanders that opportunity, considering you have, you know, bright light city gonna set my soul. Like, oh my god, the neons of Vegas. I know it's been abandoned for years, but imagine if the climax of this movie was set. The movie takes place completely during like the daytime. Imagine if it took place at night. And like you've got ruins, but some of the neon stuff just can't help but still come on and be turned on. You could play with that visual. He does it in the opening sequences of the movie, the credit sequence, the opening credit sequence, quite a lot. He plays with the visuals of Vegas turning into a horror ground full of blood and gnarled teeth and claws and brains and everything. But like it's so brief. It is so brief. Everything is underlit. Everything is drab. It is either in soft or changing focus, which is a technique used a lot in the movie. At first, I noticed it was in a scene with Tig Notaro, who she was cast to replace an alleged but very likely pederast. And I noticed in this first scene with her that there was a lot of focus pulling in the scene, like the background's being really out of focus, the character in the foreground being in focus, and sometimes it crossing through the different layers of the film. And I was like, has this been used to mask the reshoots to get her into the movie? But then it continued. There is a shot of the zombie queen, and the zombies have a hierarchy, and that's interesting, but they never really go into it, other than there's a couple of them that if they bite you, you become a bit more intelligent than the other zombies. Cool. Do you want to do more with that? Apparently not. Like there's a shot with her like glaring, she's real close to camera, and her face is in focus, and the rest of her isn't, and everything in the background is completely washed out of focus. But then like part of her face isn't in focus, but it's not really highlighting a specific bit. The interior shots, like in the corridors with the safe or the inside of the casino, because we really don't go to many locations in this movie. Like we really don't see a variety of locations. They're all really dark and they're all really drab. When it's not a big vista or an attempt at a vista or a scene, it's very basic in the corridors. The shooting leaves very little to the imagination. It seems like a waste of the setting. And I was like, so who did the cinematography? I had to look it up. It was Zack. It was the first time Zack Snyder's done the cinematography himself. I'm not sure how he can cock up doing what he's good at. Anyway. So, one person who really sort of shines in the movie is Ella Pernell as Kate, Scott Ward's daughter, his estranged daughter. Because she's the only character who seems to have an actual moral compass. She has a goal, to protect the people in the quarantine zone and to find her friend Geeta, who has gotten lost within Vegas, and to get her out if she's still alive. There's an energy that Ella brings to it, and in her few scenes with her as Kate and Bautista as her dad Scott, where they just bounce off of each other, stilted dialogue aside, there's a real warmth to them, and that's brilliant. That's really good. There's a lot of promise. I'm just going to read out a few of the notes I made while watching the movies. I couldn't quite believe this. So, Zack Snyder has a tendency in his movies to use real-world pundits or late-night hosts or commentators, news commentators. There's one point in this where they're arguing about the rights of the life, you know, of zombies, whether or not they deserve a chance. And the pundit is played by Sean Spicer, former White House press secretary who lied to millions of Americans on TV for days during the first year of the Trump administration. They paid him to play a pundit. Don't do that. Don't do that. Next thing you know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is going to be rocking up in whatever film he does next. I'm just like, no, don't give these people a platform. If I see Kaylee McEnany showing up in a Snyder film, I will puke. The dialogue is ass, I've written. Way too much tell and don't show. Yeah, there's an awful lot of like, I'm going to describe who we are and where we came from or what this means and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Don't show it. We're told that Tig Notaro's character is unhappy in her job as a helicopter pilot and helicopter engineer. We're not shown that. She just says, I hate my life. It sucks. I'll take the job. Let's go. You're like, okay. We're told that Batista's unhappy in his burger flipping job, but we're not shown that he's unhappy in his burger flipping job. He spends the rest of the movie talking with his daughter about how when they get out of this, they'll open a food truck together. So it's like, so he has a passion for cooking. Like, what is going on here? All the soundtrack is covers, apart from at the very end, but all the soundtrack is cover versions of classic hits. But they have the same charm as those acoustic commercial covers and miss the for the original song. Remember when there was a massive trend, especially here in the UK, for adverts to suddenly have like covers of pop hits or musical numbers, but they were done in an acoustic style and they didn't quite work. There was one that did Grease, You're the One That I Want. It was like, you need a man, and my heart is set on you. What the you better shape up, do, do, do. Like, there's a reason those songs are written the way they are. This film is full of cover versions of songs. Usually one's about Vegas, gambling, the strip, sometimes about, the dead. At one point, they, like, tone deaf use the Cranberry song Zombie because it's got zombie in it. Look up the context of that song and then see why it's in poor taste. But all the covers have no energy at all, and they just detract from what the hell's going on. Focus pulling and blurriness doesn't add anything. I've looked into the cinematography now, so now we know. Without the CGI landscapes or like exterior shots of Vegas being used, it is just a flat cinematography throughout. And to find out that Snyder did that too is really surprising to me. It's like, if you've got a vision, why are you not carrying out your vision? And apparently the vision is just shadows and murky corridors and characters with crossed allegiances and characters who do things off screen and doesn't go anywhere. Weird setups. Like Vanderhoe's got this. Vanderhoe's got this really distinct circular saw that they emphasize a lot in the opening of the movie. You see him very briefly use it on a zombie's chest in a cutscene showing the original evacuation, and then you have like the slimy cop character like getting really annoyed that picking it up, and Vanderhoe getting really annoyed that he's picked it up, and it's like they're putting a lot of emphasis on him having this like come to Papa like big circular saw, and then it isn't used in the film at all, like whatsoever. It's there's just so many weird like Tanaka hires them to do this. He sends in his security chief. What's his name? Martin, who is like totally not sus. And he brings in, so his security chief goes in with him. There's obviously more of a motive to this than just them just getting the cash out. And it's a really stupid, obvious motive, and you're like, oh, for God's sake. Like, why is this the plan you've gone through to get there? But like, they send in they have to recruit a super safecracker who's now getting a prequel movie about his first zombie-based heist, despite the fact in this movie it's established that he's never come up against a zombie before. Cinematic universe is a bullshit. He says, surrounded by Marvel stuff, but if you plan it out right. Like, if Tanaka sent them in to crack the safe, why not just give them the combo to the safe? Do you know what I mean? It's just like this. There's so many setups that have no payoff. Geeta, the friend that Kate is trying to find, when they eventually do get hold of her, she seems to just disappear from the movie with no explanation. It's so many dumb choices. As a fan of horror, I can't say there's enough unique elements in here to make it an interesting entry to the zombie genre. As a fan of action films, it's fine. Nothing particularly unique. The stuff that works are the performers, that they bring what they can to a very lackluster script. But ultimately, it's a squandered opportunity. The Army of the Dead of the title is a twist, kind of, but even then, it doesn't play out. The opening sequence showing the start of the zombie outbreak is upsettingly crass, like in a way that just sort of feels really unnecessary. But very Snyder. I don't know. If you stuck around and you really like his work and you're angry at me for not enjoying it, guess what? Opinion is subjective. Can also be objective, but if you enjoyed it, I wish I did too. If you've seen Army of the Dead, what do you think about it? Let me know down in the comments. If you want us to talk about it on the show, if you've got an email and you want to talk about it, remember you can email our podcast no, you can email the podcast bigdamcontact@gmail.com, or of course you can tweet us at bigdamcast as well. Anyway, first review in a while. Sorry that it wasn't for something that I really dug. I would have really liked that. Anyway, see you in the podcast. Ta-ra!